Hey everyone, today we're going to talk about animating a ball throw. This exercise is a great one to hone a few of the 12 principles of animation, namely pose-to-pose animation, slow ins and slow outs, as well as follow through. We'll take an in-depth look at timing charts and how I use them to accomplish the feeling that I'm trying to get with each part of the movement. I know timing charts can be super confusing, so I'm going to mainly focus on that in this video. If you want more in-depth character animation, that stuff's going to come later on. Okay, so let's set up our ball throw by establishing our 3 key poses. It's going to just start in an initial state with the ball in the hand. I'm pulling it back for the anticipation pose, and then the final pose is where the ball has been released. At this point, we're just establishing the 3 main storytelling poses. With digital animation, it's a little bit easier to time these out because you can just stretch your key poses and try to find a timing that feels natural. Back in the day, animators used to use stopwatches, and then they'd count the number of seconds they thought each pose should be held for, and then divide that by 24, which is 24 frames per second. But we've already done too much math on an art channel, so I'd say just try to find something that feels natural. Once you've established your number of frames, now we have to figure out how we're going to break up each of those movements from one key pose to another. So let's break down this timing chart just a little bit. I've decided that the movement from pose A to pose B is going to take a total of 14 frames. I want to have the arm gradually pick up speed from pose A and then slow down as it approaches B. So let's dissect this timing chart a little bit more in depth. On the left of my timing chart, we have our starting frame, frame 1, and all the way on the right, we have our ending frame, which is frame 15, for a total of 14 frames between them. I'm then going to divide the timing chart into thirds, meaning that at each tick mark, 1/3 of the movement has played out. And those arches on the top mean that the spaces between those drawings are the same. But because I want the arm to both accelerate and decelerate, I have to pad the beginning and ends with more drawings, because more drawings equals more time. These orange arches are showing that this next drawing is halfway between the beginning pose and the 1/3 mark. To make the acceleration and deceleration even more gradual, I'm actually going to add another drawing really close to the start frame and the end frame. This animation is going to be on 2s, so I'm going to have a gap of 2 frames between each one of these tick marks, but that distance could be any frame number that you want to put in. It could be 1s, 2s, 3s, 4s. As you get more comfortable with timing charts, you'll start to experiment a little bit more and build up a repertoire of the types of frames that you want to use. Let's have a look at this animation one more time. That timing chart we just made is down at the bottom, but now I've represented it visually on the arc that the hand is moving in. I don't always draw my timing charts on the animation like this because it can be a little cumbersome, but hopefully that helps give a better visual representation of what the timing chart is telling you. Okay, now let's have a look at the release from pose B to pose C. We're going to use the exact same concept of slow in and slow out, but I wanted a bigger gap between my drawings, so I used a timing chart that's divided into sixths. If you look at the visual representation of the arc, you can see why I did this, because there's a much bigger gap between frame 22 and 23. That big gap makes it feel very fast, because it's going across 2/3 of the arc just in one single frame. And just like before, I'm padding both ends so that there's an acceleration and then a deceleration at the end. One thing that I added into this animation is that I broke the limbs to make the throw feel like it was even stronger. So you can see that the arm is bending at the elbow and is bending backwards. The other thing that happens here, the arm doesn't immediately stop after it throws the ball. It continues to move along that arc. Now that you have an idea of how these principles work, I'm going to show some time-lapse footage of me animating a pitch. My suggestion to you, if you're watching this video and trying to learn to animate, you can use poses from reference, but try to do the timings on your own, so write out your own timing charts before you go into animating it. You can really save a lot of time if you use timing charts because you won't spend an excess of time just making a bunch of frames that you're probably not going to use in the end anyway. So it's a good idea to be thoughtful about your process and go in with a little bit of planning first. All right, everybody, that's about it for this week. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you found it helpful, and keep on animating. Take care.